What is rejection trauma? While rejection trauma is not a formally, diagnosable dynamic in word, what we're really talking about for many people is the experience of repeated rejection in their childhood. Now, it may have been attempts to be emotionally connected, receiving, feeling like you're being seen and validated, and that a parent is emotionally wanting and available and accepting of who you are. Or they're not. So they can't give you comfort or sympathy or empathy or emotional attention or support in any way. Or it could be that actual physical rejection or both, which was like, don't hug me, don't kiss me, don't hold my hand, like a true rejection of the child's physical body in terms of a comfort and affection and emotional and physical safety. And so there's like a distancing that occurs. And what happens with this sort of rejected child syndrome experience is that deep inside we develop these core beliefs and these trauma responses that help us survive that really wasteland of loneliness that we would have experienced. I mean, imagine going through your childhood and not having that. And so many of us are getting this form of rejection through a lack of emotional availability, from a lack of emotional safety. But there's an active, whether it's mental or physical, emotional pushing away. It is a pushing away of the child, not just not paying attention, but an intentional, like, you don't get this from me. And a child has no other choice but to decide, and when they're children, that, oh, that must mean there's something wrong with me. And so the something wrong with me, I think, shows up in the following 7 signs. Number 1, we have deeply negative thoughts and beliefs about what others are thinking about us. And so we are always looking for that and scanning, once again, as I talk about hypervigilance so much. But it's like we're looking for any sign of rejection all of the time. And the automatic negative thought is like, you're going to hurt me, you don't care about me, I'm not worthy, you're going to leave me, my needs aren't allowed, whatever it is. Number 2, we have a tendency to engage in some form of emotional or physical or both avoidance and or isolating types of behaviors, which also might fall into being overly self-reliant. So we're overly independent, like pseudo-independent. These also can tie in with the classic attachment patterns and how we might show up in the world. But we basically use our own distancing to deal with the distancing we received. And it might be, like I'm saying, on the one end, from truly being alone a lot and rejecting time with others, because it just feels too vulnerable and unsafe. It could be that you travel the world alone and you're doing everything, you're overly independent. But behind that, it's not just your exploratory independence, it is a response to not getting that. And so your tendency is to distance in your own version, in avoidance, isolation, or over self-reliance. Number 3, people-pleasing and compulsive caretaking. Now this would fall into the more anxious, like the last one I just described, that might fall into a pattern of more dismissive or avoidant attachment. But here, because of the rejection, we have learned to be hypersensitive to getting others, to helping others get their needs met. So we feel a great sense of value because we think the only way we do have value, because we felt so rejected, was to never make it about us and to make it about you. And when we're making it about you, it finally does let us feel some form of love. It's the opposite of distancing. Oh, I took care of you, I provided for you, you think I'm valuable when I do those things. And so oftentimes we're going above and beyond to deal with these rejecting parents, and that skill or technique we learn is to hyper-focus on others, to deny our own self, and, as I know I say a million times, it allows us to avoid our own pain, the pain of the rejection, honestly. Number 4 is our trust issues and fear of vulnerability, and they are basically one and the same. That to be in relationship requires vulnerability and trust. And if you had a parent push you away and distance from you in some regard, or all of these regards, what have you learned about closeness? A, you don't know much about closeness. What you know is that you've been hurt in relationship, and it doesn't make sense to take the risk and show your true self because, first of all, you often don't know who that person is, or how to access it, and it doesn't feel safe. It actually feels the opposite. It feels threatening because you had that guard up, that wall up, because even though you had no language to say this parent is rejecting me, you felt that rejection in your body. We are warm-blooded mammals who reach out for connection, and however you experience that rejection, it's going to hurt inside your body, and that hurt is going to tie directly to trust issues and vulnerability, which are the demands in most relationships on some level. And then going back to the earlier, like I said, what a great strategy to employ when you feel too vulnerable or being asked to go avoid, isolate, or go off on your own. The next one is never feeling good enough and having a difficult sort of sense of self or self-esteem issues. So rejection trauma is really all about saying on some level, you're not worthy. You don't get to have a valued sense of self. In fact, you deserve active rejection. And so what other meaning could we make of that than that is because we are bad. There is something defective or wrong about us. The next one is difficulty regulating your emotions, especially when people have emotional demands and expectations. Things like communication, boundary setting, interpreting social cues, making meaning of social cues, having rejection sensitivities, feeling like you're a child no matter how old you become inside. Like I was saying, there's like a developmental arrest that can occur when we have these difficulties. And so we're stuck in that rejected child's mind and body. And so when it comes to dealing with our feelings, if we were rejected, we would have dealt with a lot of those feelings alone. We would have repressed them, suppressed them, we would have stuffed them, we would have put them every which way we could now and then away from us because it wouldn't be safe. And so when people have demands on us, we feel, number one, they're going to reject us, so why should I even tell you? But we didn't even get the skills. What we lacked was reciprocity. I hug you, you hug me back. I kiss you, you kiss me back. I tell you I love you, you say it back, right? That is the reciprocity that we never get when we have this kind of trauma. And lastly, we are often living with a deep, profoundly deep sense of loneliness and isolation deep in our soul and in our core. And we feel deeply unknown by everyone. It's like no one can ever really know me, and I'm not worth being known. And why? Because of all the things I just said. And so that can keep us living in a lifelong pattern of actual loneliness where we isolate and are avoidant. It can keep us feeling lonely in relationships, even if we try to find ways to be in them. We feel so deeply rejected and misunderstood and alone inside. And that can be a very hopeless, difficult place to be until you become aware of maybe why you feel so other than, so different than. So how do you work on this? Of course, things like trauma-focused therapies, reparenting work, inner child work, which I know isn't always easy, learning to develop the skills of self-compassion, maybe developing social skills like real skill practice on how to communicate, how to be in social dynamics, how to interpret social cues, to understand and really become aware of this sort of like scanner for rejection that you enter every situation, every relationship, looking for signs of rejection. And then looking at how you reinforce those things you do. So maybe you say you want connection, but you never take risks and go try to make connections because it's too scary. And so you avoid things, you avoid, intimacy, vulnerability, and that keeps you stuck in this reinforcing pattern. And then doing things like naturally trying to slowly let people into your life to build connection, which is terrifying when your underlying belief system is that people will reject you, that you're not worth seeing and your needs don't matter. And of course, something like this could manifest in something like a borderline disorder, trauma-based disorders. A lot of these things are so related to what we did not receive in childhood and how that creates trauma in our bodies, in our stories, and in our lives. And so if this is you, please know that there are places to begin healing, but acknowledging it and trying to just honor that in a childhood like that, all you could barely do was survive it. And you did do that. But that being the standard, just surviving, is not an easy way to go through life. And you deserve more than that. So, thank you for being here. Please stay safe and well. And I'll see you soon.